This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy. We go deep and lightly surface the big ideas.
Okay, let's unpack this. We talk constantly about, performance, strategy, leadership. But underneath all that, what's the thing that actually lets everything happen? Modern business, teamwork, it's trust, isn't it? That's the silent enabler, the handshake that makes markets work.
Absolutely. And when you look inside companies, the payoff for trust is just huge. It's not small gains we're talking about. The research keeps showing it. Employees in high-trust places, they're way more productive, happier, they give more effort, and they stick around longer. They're even, believe it or not, physically healthier than people in low-trust jobs.
Happier, healthier, and boosting the bottom line. That sounds like the ideal situation.
Yeah.
So our mission for you today is simple. Forget the rah-rah speeches for a minute. Let's get into the science. We're going to unpack the actual neurobiology of trust, how your brain decides yes or no on cooperation, why it breaks down, especially under pressure, and importantly, what the science says about building it back up.
Yeah, we're looking for the real chemistry behind collaboration, how it actually works in our heads.
Okay, so here's something pretty amazing about us humans. If you look across, the entire animal kingdom, we seem to be the only ones with the brain wiring needed to trust and really collaborate with people outside our family or immediate group. Most animals just can't pull that off. What is going on in our heads that allows this?
Well, it really comes down to two key neurological systems that are highly evolved in humans. First, there's our massive cortex, that wrinkly outer layer of the brain. It handles planning, abstract thought, complex social stuff, and this lets us do something called theory of mind.
Theory of mind. Okay, that sounds a bit academic. What does that actually mean day to day, like in a meeting or working on a project?
It's basically the ability to step into someone else's shoes mentally, to simulate their perspective. It lets you sort of forecast what they might do. You think, okay, if I were them with their goals, what's their next move? And that ability to anticipate intentions, that's fundamental for coordinating anything complex. We need it to trust someone new.
So we're not just guessing blindly. Our brains are running these constant kind of unconscious simulations to figure out if someone's trustworthy.
Exactly. That's the first piece. The second is empathy, and that's hugely boosted by a neurochemical called oxytocin. And this is really key anatomically speaking. Humans have a much higher density of oxytocin receptors, especially in the frontal cortex, than any other animal. Our deep need for social connection, it's literally built into our brain structure.
Right, oxytocin. People often call it the cuddle hormone or the love drug. Is its main job just to make us less anxious around strangers, sort of a social icebreaker chemical?
That's definitely one of its big roles, yeah. It dials down that natural wariness or anxiety we feel around new people, makes us more open. But just as importantly, it actively motivates us to cooperate, to help out. It shifts us from anxiety towards collaborative action.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me, because this is where the brain links it all back to reward, right? Decides that the interaction was good.
It's like the ultimate evolutionary feedback loop. Oxytocin doesn't just calm us down. It actually plays with dopamine. Dopamine, the brain's, hey, do that again, chemical.
Yeah.
So when we cooperate successfully, that oxytocin surge interacts with the dopamine system. It feels good. Basically, we evolved to find collaboration enjoyable because our brains literally reward us for it.
So every time a team clicks, every good meeting, it's this neurochemical cycle firing. A kind of two-way trust game. We're using theory of mind to guess intentions and then getting that dopamine hit when it works out.
That's pretty much the natural, healthy state for us, yeah.
The workplace.
Yeah.
That adds a big wrinkle, doesn't it? Particularly the boss.
Yeah.
It seems like leadership can sometimes easily mess up that whole evolved trust system.
Yeah.
Often by using fear or just, throwing their weight around.
Yeah, fear, it might give you a short-term jolt, make people hit a deadline, but the source material's really clear.
Yeah.
It's a terrible long-term strategy for motivation, and it absolutely kills trust.
And the result of constant fear is, there's a term for it, right? Learned helplessness.
Yeah.
Like, if your boss is unpredictable, maybe yells or criticizes no matter what you do, people figure out they can't control the punishment.
Yeah.
So what happens? They just retreat. Avoid the boss. Try to stay invisible. Do the absolute minimum to not get noticed. Is that it?
That's exactly it. And while fear makes people hide, dominance, well, that actually causes harm, like real harm. What's fascinating, and maybe a bit scary, is that neuroscience shows dominant behavior being shut down, excluded, treated badly. It registers in the brain like physical pain. It activates the same network, the pain matrix, as, say, getting physically hurt.
Wow. Okay. We always use phrases like toxic bosses of pain, but to know it lights up the same brain circuits as actually getting punched,
Yeah.
suddenly toxic culture feels like an understatement.
And here's the real kicker. The brain's signature of that social pain. It often lasts longer than physical pain. You might get over a bruise fairly quickly, but that feeling of humiliation or being unfairly treated by someone in charge, that can stick around, affecting trust and how you act for ages.
And the source material suggests this isn't always someone being intentionally malicious. Sometimes it's just hormones, testosterone specifically.
That's right. When people feel powerful, like they're the center of attention, maybe after closing a big deal or even just winning a tough argument or, yeah, a chess match, their testosterone levels can spike. And high testosterone basically tells the brain, hey, I'm important, I'm powerful.
Wait, hold on. So feeling successful, that natural high a leader might get, their own body chemistry could actually be working against them leading the team effectively.
It can, absolutely. It's a bit counterintuitive, but here's the chain reaction. High testosterone tends to inhibit the release of oxytocin. Less oxytocin means less empathy, less drive to collaborate, less ability to soothe anxiety in others. And that testosterone-fueled aggression, it's kind of contagious. It doesn't just hurt the leader's connections. It can suppress trust across the whole team that sees it happen.
Right, so for leaders riding that wave of success, the really practical advice, based on the science, is notice it. Recognize that hormonal influence. And consciously resist acting impulsively, dominantly. Just take a breath before criticizing. Pause before reacting. Choose to connect instead.
That pause is crucial. It's your executive brain, the cortex, stepping in to override that knee-jerk chemical reaction. It breaks the negative loop.
Okay, so we've seen how trust gets built biologically and how easily leaders can break it. Let's switch gears. How do we actually build it back? Actively. Measurably.
Right. Actionable steps. It starts with a measurement, but let's keep it really simple. If you want a pulse on that oxytocin-dopamine interaction, basically, how engaged your team feels, just ask them this. On a scale from 1 to 7, how much do you typically enjoy your job on an average day?
Huh. That's incredibly direct. Cuts through all the corporate jargon right to that neurological reward feeling. But what stops people from just saying 5 or 6 is because they think that's what the boss wants to hear, or they feel watched.
Good question. It comes down to doing it often, anonymously, and looking at the pattern. If you're consistently getting averages with lots of 5s and 6s, you probably have a decent, rewarding culture. People feel good about the work. But if you're seeing mostly 2s and 3s, that's a huge red flag. It means the work probably feels painful, and you need a serious culture reboot.
Okay, so you measure, you find the problem areas. Then the strategy is about building new habits. The brain likes shortcuts, default pathways. So you exploit that by creating new trust habits. But the research says, well, it takes time, like 90 days for it to stick.
Yeah, that 90-day figure seems important for actually rewiring those neural pathways. It's not an overnight thing. We saw a great example of this with a struggling division in a big retail company. Low morale, high turnover, the usual signs.
And what was the specific trust issue there? What was missing?
When they surveyed everyone, the really low scores were around a behavior they called natural. Basically, could people be authentic? Could they be candid, admit mistakes, be a bit vulnerable? They were scoring way down, like the 62nd percentile, compared to a benchmark around the 70th. People felt they had to put on a mask. Couldn't be real.
Right, so a standard team-building workshop probably wouldn't cut it. What did the 90-day intervention actually involve to boost that natural behavior?
It was very hands-on, very specific. Employees watched short videos about the science behind why authenticity matters at work. And then they had concrete actions to take. Like 1 week, they might be tasked with calling a meeting just to talk about a mistake they made recently, explain what happened, what they learned, how others could avoid it. Or another action was spending a whole day working in a customer-facing role, which kind of forces shared vulnerability and problem solving.
Ah, so you're deliberately creating situations for, like, low-stakes vulnerability, which should trigger oxytocin, reinforce that dopamine loop.
Exactly. Making it safe and then rewarding. And alongside those actions, for about 2.5 months, they got weekly email nudges. These asked them to quickly rate how much they saw their colleagues practicing these new natural behaviors. Kept it top of mind, created some peer accountability.
So what happened after 90 days? Did it work? Did they actually move the needle on trust?
They really did, quite dramatically. The scores for natural behavior jumped from that 62nd percentile all the way up to the 81st. But here's the really compelling part, the proof it mattered. Before this, there was zero connection statistically between trust scores in that division and whether people stayed or left. After the 90 days, they established a clear positive link. Higher trust directly correlated with better retention. The chemical change led to real organizational stability.
That's powerful. A direct line from brain science to, well, keeping your people. But let's push it further. Does this internal team chemistry spill over? Does it affect the ultimate goal revenue, customers buying things?
Great question. They actually studied this directly in a couple of high-end clothing stores. They had staff wear sensors, basically measuring their attention levels and signs of oxytocin release. They called this combined metric immersion.
Okay, so the idea being trust is contagious, right? If the salesperson is genuinely present, attentive, immersed, that should somehow register with the customer chemically.
Yeah.
Maybe predict if they buy something.
That was exactly the hypothesis, and the results were pretty stunning. Just looking at the staff's immersion level alone, they could predict who would make a purchase versus who would walk out empty-handed with 69% accuracy.
69%. Just based on the salesperson's brain activity and attention? That's, wow. That's incredibly predictive.
And it got even better. When they factored in one simple behavioral measure, just how long the customer physically spent browsing in the store, the accuracy for predicting a purchase jumped again, up to an amazing 84%. So more time spent, plus high staff immersion. Very high likelihood of a sale.
Okay, so time in the store and the staff's neurochemical state are the big predictors of if someone buys. What about how much they buy? The spending volume.
And this might be the most critical finding for any business. The amount of customers spent went up linearly with the staff's immersion level. It wasn't just a switch buy or don't buy. The more attentive, trustworthy, empathetic the staff felt based on the sensors, the more money the customer actually spent. Trust doesn't just enable the sale, it directly drives the size of the sale.
Which brings us right back where we started. Trust isn't some fluffy soft skill. It's not just nice to have. It's a measurable biological process in the brain. It fires up systems that drive teamwork, and when you foster it correctly, it can actually make work feel less like work and, well, maybe more like play sometimes.
Yeah. And linking back to that very first point we made, that people in high-trust companies are literally healthier. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What's the real cost of low-trust workplaces? It's not just lost sales or high turnover. It's potentially the long-term physical and mental health of your people. The science shows we have the power to change this, starting small. So maybe the question for you listeners is what's one small habit, maybe around vulnerability, maybe around cooperation, that you could commit to for the next 90 days just to nudge that trust needle where you work?
Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other podcasts, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.